Hello and good morning. It is June 24th, 2021. Okay, I'm doing this video on the moon and the sun just to cover some material that I've uncovered. So I'll get right to it. Okay, so one thing that, people might notice, in their day-to-day, and, they might notice occasionally is that the moon sometimes appears very large on the horizon. Okay, and so I'm not entirely sure what explanation science gives for the moon. They have a bunch of explanations that they claim are right about the moon being large on the horizon. Okay, it appears very, very big on the horizon line. Okay, so in my opinion, though, the reason why, make sure this is recording first of all. I'll take a pause here for a moment just to double check. Where's the record button's kind of got to edit this thing or make this video kind of sloppy. Where's the record button? Okay, good, we're recording. Okay, good, I can see that. Okay, good, sorry for the interruption there. Okay, so one of the reasons why the moon appears large on the horizon line is due to the fact that the moon itself is below the firmament, and it's actually lower altitude, so it appears lower altitude at the horizon line because it is in fact at a lower altitude. When the moon goes well above the horizon line, it's at a higher altitude, so it's further away, and so it appears smaller. And that's kind of the most simplest explanation I can come up with for why that's the case, of why it looks like that and why it does this optical illusion. But it's not really an optical illusion, it's more like the moon is actually 27, 30 miles up when it's really high up in the towards the top of the dome when compared to the horizon line. Okay, so the other thing to explain is some people have difficulty grappling with the fact that the moon is the moon is not a satellite in space. So that's one difficult thing that some people have a problem with, is that the moon is not a satellite in space. They have difficulty with this concept, and I'll explain a little bit about how certain things work. Because some people have asked, one person asked me before, okay, so how do solar eclipses work? How does this fit into the moon being, not real if they can do if the moon can do a solar eclipse? And it's really simple. Is the moon and sun were made by God in the same size. They're made the same size, but the moon itself is actually a three-dimensional object. It's just something you kind of don't want to land on, even though you could potentially land on it. What I believe it to be is that it is a very high-tech, God-created light source, and what makes it have texture and light is the fact that it's a very large 3D hologram. Okay, so it's very, very big. You could land on this thing. It's kind of like a flat pancake that has light that you can kind of like land on, but you really don't, because you might get electrocuted landing on it. So it's like literally, that's kind of what it is. It's a very high-tech sort of thing. So it can do the eclipses because it has surface area and it has mass to it. So it can therefore do an eclipse. I do not know how the lunar eclipses work, and that's one thing that you might want to check out on another channel. Other channels that might cover that topic would be an individual by the name of Feed Your Mind 1 or 2, which are his channels. He also has other channels such as Brain Power, I think is one of his channels, and also Enter the Stars might cover such topics. I do not know why the lunar eclipses occur, and I've not gotten to the bottom of that yet. But so that's one example of it, or examples of how these things work, or how I believe they work, and to try to dispel some of the myths about the moon. So we'll also discuss the sun now a little bit. So one thing to consider is that the elites are making plans for the future, and they're trying to plan out there being no sun in the future, because in the book of Revelation, the sun goes dark before time stops. So that means, and this is what I believe is going to happen, is that we still have a lot of time. We have big time gaps in between the sun going black and time totally stopping. And I also believe that we have a lot of time left here. We have at least if not 600 years, but anywhere from, I would say, 300 years to, let's say, a couple thousand years left of organic life here. It's just that organic life in the future might be a little bit much more difficult And this is where you get to the really dark side of why the elites might be depopulating or want to depopulate, is due to the fact that the sun probably has the sun is, in my opinion, is a massive God-given tokamak reactor, okay? And it has a time limit on it because it has a fuel source that's eventually going to be spent. And that's probably one of the reasons why it goes dark in the end times, is because it runs out of fuel. Okay, so the elites have been actually planning for this quagmire in the future, and what they're doing is they're building these large, massive tokamak reactors, except that they're going to be kind of smaller in size, and they can float and stuff. And so what I think that they would do is they would create cities that are domed, that have tokamak reactors, floating tokamak reactors in them, that provide light and heat. And that's for people who actually want to live outside. But another portion of humanity will live inside, and they will have food grown in like big urban farms, basically, that you don't need a tokamak reactor for, but you do need electricity for it to power and to create food to grow inside. So that's the other thing. So the future would be very dark, and a lot of organic life would die off without the sun. You can still sustain life, though, without the sun, though. You just need a lot of, man-made tokamak reactors and man-made urban farms. But a lot of portions of life in general would start to die off without enough floating tokamak reactors, because everything is dependent here on the sun. But you can actually sustain life here without the God-given sun, and humanity is actually planning for it. We're in the planning phases right now of planning for it, or in the past decade we're in the planning phases of it, because they've created what essentially are massive floating tokamak reactors that can go up in the sky. And anyway, so that's the way I see it. So I'm going to cut this video short, and I hope you all have a good day.